Excuse me. Alright, so this, I forget what part this is, part 5? Is it part 4? Anyways, I think it's part 5. Going in to do the hands now. Once I get over this part of it, I think it's all basically assembly. I'm at least going to do the loom. I'm not sure, I probably won't have time to paint the tips yet. Yeah, I think that'll have to come later. So as they are right now, these are blacks. I think these are the Mil-Spec ones, or Field-Spec, I think, yeah. And so that's why they kind of have like this sword style. Hopefully you can see this. Apologies for the noise in the background. There is laundry going on in the back. So, oh. It's hard to do this with the camera behind me, or rather in front of me and not behind the camera. But okay, so this is the back side, so it's unpainted, but you can see the loom on this side. And I'm going to scrape that out. It should just come off pretty easily, and then we're going to reloom these hands with blue loom. And as you can see, the layering isn't that thick at all. You know, you don't want to. They got to clear each other, so you got to be mindful of not laying when you reapply the loom. Don't make it too thick, because it's not that much there. But be surprised how well it holds, even with very little. But this is the color that it's supposed to be now, basically a green. It probably doesn't even match the Seiko loom anyways, so I figure might as well change it completely to blue, right? I mean, otherwise it's going to be super obvious that it's, well, not super, but obvious enough to me and probably to some discerning eyes, others, that it's not quite there exactly matched. You know, it's not a big deal. I think the main thing is if it just lasts. But I don't think the loom that these are from DLW. I don't think they are super long lasting. I don't know. I know for a fact that the blue loom paint that I got is pretty good. It's pretty comparable to how at least the basic Lume Bright stuff is. Not quite the level as the newest formula they use on the MM300s and tunas and that nature, and maybe a handful of other ones that might possibly be using the most the newest ones. But this is what I'm using. I've shown it in my other video when I was relooming some other hands and the dial. Got this off eBay, but you can go to, you can get it on Amazon. You pay Bitcoin with this. Fancy demagnetizer. I haven't seen one quite like that. I guess you can get other things here too. Dial foot solderer. Oh, so I guess you can check that out. You can actually reposition the dial at the foot. So if it's 3 or 4 o'clock crown, you know, instead of using dial dots, but that's a bit fancier. Anyways, you can go to the store to watchloom.com, and it's the stuff here. This is the binding agent. It's kind of it's almost like, looks like glue. It's kind of thick. And this is the powder, the loom powder. And in the daytime or regular lighting, you can't tell what it is until you shine some light on it, and you'll see that it is blue. So that's gonna come after I scrape this out. And I probably, since I'm doing this, I'm probably going to loom this crown too, but I'll get that to that later. Let's get on with the main thing here, and I'll do my best to keep these in frame and show you what's going on. But these are so, you know, it's delicate work that I probably may lose it. See, like I am now, so maybe I should aim this slightly like that. Okay, and if it goes out of focus, my apologies, but again, this is delicate work, so I'm going to just concentrate here. So basically, just take at it and just lightly scrape the back. I want to be sure not to hit the sides of the hands, because I believe just take a quick look. Because the hands are black, they're probably painted. They should be painted black along the sides too. So when I scrape it, I want to make sure, remove the lume, I want to make sure that I don't hit the sides and take off anything from the sides, because especially once this thing is up against, it's black, on the other side is black, and it's going to be on a black dial. So if any metal shows up, it's probably not going to be that pretty. It'll be very obvious. So I'm just lightly going over this. What would help is if I should really get something like this, a tool like this, but one of those fiberglass pens. It's basically like a sorry for the focus. It's basically like a little mini sanding pad at the end of like a pen tip. It's pretty small. It's not quite as small as a pen tip, but you know, you get the idea. It's right at the end of us. It's relatively fine point, and it can get in there, and it's basically like a little sanding pad, so you can get in there and really clean up the extra stuff out of this. Let's really get my blower out soon, and I don't want to go too fast. Basically, start clearing this up. I'm applying a little extra more force now, since I get a feel for this, because it seems like it's not coming off as fast as I want it to. Once you start looking at that, I think it's trying to break through. This is the second hand, so I'm going to remove the lume off of that. Last time, on the ones from your Bokies, they came off pretty easily. Once you start chipping at that paint, it just starts to fall apart, because it's usually kind of brittle. This might be a trickier one because it's particularly small. Be careful not to even scrape on the inside of that opening, so I can't fill it up good. It may be kind of jacked up. Let's see if I can you see? Maybe if I poke at it a little bit more with the tip. I think it's breaking up. Try not to let anything catch. And potentially also bend the tip out. I think I'm getting through. Can you see? Let me see if I can really focus that. It's the best I can do what I got to work with, but you get the idea. Oh, maybe I did get through already. Let me just carefully pick this up. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. There we go. Looks good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to not take the blade, but use something else to just kind of go at this hole just to make sure it's clear of the old one, because I don't want any bits of cross-contamination in here. And this is the way I would check is just loom that tip up and see. I think there's just a little tad, but if there's anything glowing, it would probably have showed up. So this one's pretty good. Let me just set it back down there and flip it over. I think there's a little bit right in this upper corner. I think I see something, but it's not really showing up when I light it up with the black light UV torch. So this should be okay. And so pick this up. Again, there might be particles from the paint that might have flaked off onto the front of the second hand here. So you probably want to avoid just double check and make sure. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't know if it's picking up anything. And I'm just going to get a blower real quick. And just go in and blow that out if I need to. So I set this aside on this tray out there. And I'm going to get to work on one of the other hands. Let's do this one since it's shorter. I won't have to go as long, the hour hand. So I'm going to show you one more, and then I'm going to pause and do the rest, the other hand myself off camera, just because it's basically the same thing. But sorry, my finger's in the way, but there's only so many angles I can get this at. Hang on a second. Okay. See the same technique. Kind of work the edge a bit. And that should weaken whatever's in the center that's kind of attached to it. Right? Poke at the center. Just crack off. There we go. I don't know if you can see that starting to break up. Move this in frame a little bit more centered. See if I can work it from a slightly different angle coming down this way. There we go. Should be okay. Let's see. There's a little bit on the inside here. Lightly kind of scrapes at whatever else might be stuck to it. It's clear. Let's just have a look here. Let's see. Not really anything to worry about in terms of old Lume stuck to it. It looks like it's pretty much clear. Okay, so that's that. And then we just got to do it with the second hand, sorry, the minute hand. So I'm going to stop this and do that and come back to when I'm ready to apply the Lume, the new Lume on there. Okay, as you can see, I cleared out all the Lume from the handset. Stuck it in a piece of Rotico to help me hold it, and that way I can set it aside and let it cure and dry in a little small container later. I don't have to fidget with it, just get it set and apply, and that should be it, hopefully. And I got this crown on one too, because I plan to try to Lume this guy. And the trick about this is, one, trying to fill it in nicely. Secondly, I apologize for the noise in the background. That is the laundry. I gotta do what I gotta do when I can. Once I do get it in, if I need cleanup work, you know, hopefully I don't, or at least not much. The Lume paint, it's a little bit abrasive because it's, you know, it's basically like this powder in here. It's like a really fine powder, but still, if you rub it, you know, against something too much, you could create some marks, I suppose. There's a potential there. So my worry is that if I do get it and clean it up, one, making marks, two, I don't know if it's that abrasive where it may actually remove this PVD coating somehow. And I don't know, in that case I might have to touch up the paint a little bit, but hopefully it won't get there, but we shall see. So let me set these off to the side a bit, and what I do is I take a little bit of water in one container, and this one will be for the mix, and shut this guy up, the binding agent. And so what I do is I usually do 1-to-1 mixture of the powder to binding agent. Obviously these parts are very small, so you're not going to need a lot, and there's a chance that if I don't work fast enough, I may need to toss the batch because it may start to dry and get kind of hard to work with, and I'd rather just start fresh and make sure I can apply it right. So there's a chance, and yeah, you may see me mix this a couple of times, but or I may just cut that out. You don't need to see that once you see it once. So and the water is to thin it out, because by itself it's a little bit thick, and even if you have less powder and more binding agent, the stuff is kind of a little bit on the thick side. It's I don't know what the consistency is, like maybe like, you know, all-purpose, like Elmer's glue, something like that. Not quite as thick, maybe just a little bit thinner. You'll see in a moment. And on top of that, you know, you don't want to actually reduce too much of the Lume that you plan to put into it. And here's the tools. I got this little oiling pen. I don't know, it's from China, but it's this really small tip. I can focus on here. Let's see, they come in different sizes, but this one seemed like it was about right for what I needed. You just basically dab that stuff and you let it run it in. It's like a paint butt, but it's just no bristles. And yeah, that's all you're gonna need. Let's make sure this is clean. Don't want anything getting into the mixture and it could potentially darken the mix. So sorry for the focus. Do now is just take, what should I do first? I guess I should drop this stuff in first, and you can see maybe how, zoom up in here. Like that. A little glob. About so. It's been a while since I've done this, so hopefully this is right. And then take about 50% of this powder. Just mix it in there. Oop. Hopefully that wasn't too much. Well, anyways, and then just to start mixing it. Like so. Let me see if I can focus in on there. Sorry, gotta do it's one-handed. Okay, so mix it, and what I found useful too is you're gonna want to get this black light available. Oh geez, I left this running so that you can see the mixture. Because with your bare eyes, you're not going to see where there's perhaps thin spots of the Lume powder. You know, look, you take a look. It probably looks fairly even to you on the camera here, but in my bare eyes in person, you can discern, you know, any areas of potential, you know, inconsistencies in the mixture. So that's why this stuff is tricky. You have a limited time to work with. It's not the easiest to work with because of the texture, the viscosity, or you know, of it. Additionally, you want to be careful how you mix it too, because you go too aggressive and there's too much bubbles, then that could screw you up too. So hopefully you can still see this. You know, if there's too much air bubbles inside here, then they'll show up in your Lume paint as well, which kind of sucks. So that's why this kind of, you may not be able to see it, you probably can't, but let me see if this helps. Probably not, but to my eyes I can see there are some spots of air bubbles, so that's something you gotta have to deal with as you're working this. So I think I should thin this out, because see what the problem is. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can tone the exposure down a bit. See, when you apply it, see how you're painting it, as you apply it and then you take off, it tends to lift up the paint a little bit, and you can get some, what do you call that, some caps, whisking, whatever you want to call it, and you don't want that. That's going to be troublesome. So I'm going to just dip this into the water here and just bring it in back into the mix. Yeah, because it doesn't take much to thin this out, and if you go too much, it's going to look just too thin. And you know, it's probably not going to go on that nicely also if it's too thin. Let me just go back and check. But what I'm looking for is see that? Actually, it's getting there pretty fast. It lifts, but it drops back into itself. You know, it doesn't just stay elevated off of the surface. You know, that's what I'm basically looking for, is to be able to just, like, if I paint it, I just want it to flow right in and then just kind of drop and sink into the recesses here. Jeez, hopefully this isn't too thick either still, even though the real test will be with this applicator. think it'll be okay. I'm going for it. And let's cap the powder so I don't tip it over and waste it. Okay, so this will buy me enough time to... I'm gonna bump up the brightness on this just a little bit so you can see it maybe a little better. Oh no, what happened? Okay. So if I get out of focus, I apologize. It's not easy to... So I'm gonna work on a smaller area first, such as the second hand. So you're just gonna push it on one corner and just drag it across. Like so. You see that? See how I just pull that across? And I'm going to just double check the other side if I can. Make sure it doesn't somehow flow through the bottom of the other side too much. And I'm going to just add one more pass. And what you do is you actually put it around the outside a bit too, just because you need something to, you don't want just all in the center. You want something around the frame, I guess, to hold it in. And we'll just check this real quick. And make sure we got blue lume. And I'm going to just quickly double check on the back side here, or rather technically it's actually it's the front. Let's see. Can you get focus on me? Yeah, it looks about right. It doesn't... I think it'll be fine. Alright. Let's continue on. I guess I'll do the... This one's going to be the hardest because it's so long. But let's just go for it. I'm just going to push some down here and try to pull it across. This is where it gets tricky because you don't want to overdo it. Right there. See that? And then I got some thin spots. I don't know if you can kind of make it out there because it's a lot, pretty wide span to cover. And I just hope that this mixture is good enough that it won't start making air bubbles in the paint application. You don't see it initially, but sometimes they just form up on you. Okay, and let's just check, make sure that we got a good consistent application. I still see a little bit of bubbling. I think maybe if I just I don't know, delicately add just I just want to make sure I don't put too much either, because then that will really screw things up. When I try to put the hands together, I start stanking them. You really don't want them to be too thick and they touch each other, because I've had that happen and I'd have to carefully shave it off with a razor blade. So let's see here. I think that should be okay there. This tiny dab. I think right on this edge of the tip. I think I touched it. Sometimes I have these magnifying glasses, like what jewelers wear. And you want to make sure it flows even on... Sorry, you can't really see that, huh? Let's focus on that. There we go. Okay, that's why you want to make it not too thick too, because you want to make sure it looks even across on the other side. As far as I can tell, this should do it. Okay, let's keep moving. And I tend to wipe off the tip. See See, there's a little bit of particle there. Can we focus on this a little bit? Come on, come on, come on. Okay, I'm recording. God damn it, what the hell is... Okay, here we go. Yeah, make sure there's no residue from the mixture from the previous, you know, sometimes it gets a little bit caked, or once you start drying and cake on the end, and you don't want that to get into anything. You know, it'll show up pretty nastily. So you just bring it across like that, and there you go. And that's how you fill it out. And then I think I could just use this a tiny bit more. So I think it's flowing into that, obviously that opening a bit. So let's just go like that. And I think that's good. I'm gonna try to brush off some of the ones right near the tip because it looked a little bit on the thick side, but I don't think I overdid it. Let's see how it looks like under a black light again. So it's good to try to keep checking these things. And you might have to hit it up again after it's dried. I mean, I tried not to get any air bubbles on these things. If they do show up, hopefully they're super small, pretty much invisible to most eyes anyways. So, I don't know, I feel like I need to hit this side up one more time because I feel like there's a little bit of a thin spot forming up. You know, as it's drying, it is possible that it may just... Okay, and did I go over this? I think I went over that first. Alright, so it's been, let's get a little bit more, and just try to wipe it across one more time. Okay, that should be good. Let's just double check again. This, probably not in the camera, but to my naked eyes, I could definitely see. Let's see if you can see that. There's slight air bubble, at least on the back side there. A couple of spots, but does it show through the front? Yes, it does. Darn it. Let's see. What can I do? I guess I could just try to fill it in more. Just maybe force some of that stuff through those little crevice, not crevice, but the little openings on the other side of the paint. You don't want to start, think you're done and then you try to set it in place and then you realize, oh crap, I can see there's holes. Okay, I think I fixed, because I don't see the holes on the other side anymore. And I really don't want to risk adding any more Lume paint to this, but this should be a decent, sorry if it's off camera there, there should be a nice decent application of Lume on there. Now the question is, is this consistency good enough for me to use with the crown. I feel like I need I feel like I need to thin it out just a little bit more because it's so fine, you know, the S there. But, yeah, I gotta be careful. I don't want to add any air bubbles. Should be okay. I'm not sure how people do it. I mean, I've done the signed S crown before on my Night King mod. And it came out pretty good. I think it could have been a little bit better in retrospect, but I think it actually worked out okay. Alright, let's see what I can do with this. See, this is... I'm gonna have to do some cleanup work here. Okay, well, let's just go for it. Fuck it. Jeez, I need to switch sides here because I'm like working in the shadows. Okay, I can keep some light on this spot. Let's put. I'm gonna set this down a little bit because I want to keep it steady and. Doing. Yeah. Leave it to me to not leave well enough alone. Let's see how this looks. Main thing is this thing filled in enough? And then what I gotta do is take thinking if I take a little bit of dip this Q-tip in a little bit of water here. Don't make it too wet, but start to, maybe I can smooth it out and clean up the edges a bit. At least that's a hope. I'm gonna be careful you're not actually spreading the lume into other areas, you know, across the surface, even like a finite amount. It can make it kind of hazy, you know, when it comes time to actually show off that lume. Sorry, I was off camera. But I'm just trying to let's see how much time I have. I got cut off there, but anyways, I'm just trying to do my best to finish this video, and it should just basically end with me doing this, and we'll see the end results later. But this is basically how I'm doing it this time. Last time I filled it in, and I just kind of took some sort of hard edge and tried to scrape it clean instead. Shit. And it can leave some abrasive marks if you're not too careful. So I didn't want to do that on this time. Damn, it was coming along great, and then it's right here that's messing me up. On the bottom of this S here. Some parts of it. I guess I'm trying to, the best thing is to try to like roll the lume paint in to the cracks. I was saying that I think Crystaltines makes one, but it's more in the Synchron is more like the one on the Alpinist, the SARPS 059, and maybe some other handful of other Seikos. It doesn't look like a normal S. Some people say it's like a snake. Personally, I find it a little sloppy because it doesn't look like the S that is in the logo. And I thought that was a mistake. I said, oh, maybe some part of when I had the SARP 059, I thought, well, maybe part of the engraving got over polished or something, and that's why it looks like incomplete. Like there's like a little tail, you know, a serif end on one part, but not the other, and it kind of looks more organic. It just kind of flows out, kind of unusual. This just doesn't look like your typical Seiko S, so I didn't particularly care for it. I like this more. It looks like, you know, it's supposed to look like more like the the S style that's in the full Seiko logo, you know, the text. Check this. I mean, in actuality, when you see it, it looks pretty good. It might look a little... I wish it could be a little bit more even looking when it's not loomed up. But the main thing is, if it looks good when it's loomed. I think that's important. Let this end is just a little bit loose on the side. The bottom of the S here. Just... and I think there's... I can't tell. Let's take a look at this again. Yeah, you know, like that part of the S needs to get pushed in just a little bit more to define that point. If I can do that. And the same goes, I guess, with the opposite end. Just push, like, again, it's a serif tip, so there's like it's a bit of detail at the end there. Gently kind of roll it. You know, you want it to look smooth or at least flat. It doesn't look like you filled it in with something kind of thick and uneven. It look kind of ghetto. I don't know. If somebody's done this, has a better technique, please do share it. But I'm just kind of going with the flow. This is actually the first time I've actually tried doing it this way. And I think for the most part it's alright. Just to find that point there a little bit better. I think right at the top of that S though. Yeah, that looked pretty good. But right up in here, I think it's just peeking out a little bit. At the top of this part of the S right here. This kind of curve in here. I think some of the paint is just right outside of the engraving ever so slightly. Sorry, this is probably boring ass shit to look at, but you know, I really want to just document and show how I do this. And maybe that'll give some people an idea what it takes to potentially make your own Lume crown like this. And it's not easy, obviously. There's a lot of it's quite a bit involved. And you check this to make sure there's no bits of Lume that kind of flaked off and around the crown as well. Look a little sloppy. Okay, I'm gonna switch tips to a newer one, so it's the other one's getting kind of worn. It's a bit of precision here, as much as you can do with a Q-tip. I think that's looking pretty darn good. I mean, if you've seen my pictures, there's plenty of faults, or nothing's perfect, actually, but the pictures I take of my watches, I don't really do any touch-up work on them. I just change the tonality and shadows and stuff, but whatever detail is there, or not, I suppose, it's just the way it shows up on camera typically, and for the most part your eyes naturally too, so there's just no real trickery involved. It's just that it's not perfect, but to most eyes, it just flows and works. Okay. I think I'm about to call it quits on this part. Let's see, make sure it's, I hope me messing with the, trying to pat it down doesn't screw up anything. That's why I have a wet tip too, so that it shouldn't stick to any loom pieces and, you know, pull and push it off of where it's supposed to sit. I think that'll do. Let's see if I can get the focus better. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Let me just do one little flowing out. I don't know, I'm scared if I touch it. I was gonna push it down with my finger, but it may just completely throw things out of whack here. Put this back in place. Okay, I think I was able to save this and do a reasonably good application on this. It may show up rough on this on the camera because you kind of have a close look at it, but in actuality, I think it's fine. I'm gonna just, God, I hope I don't screw myself here. I'm gonna just take this glove here and just see if I press it down even like that. It's wet at the tip. Okay, I just dipped it in some water. Not too much, but just maybe if I press it down, it may just do enough to smooth out the surface a bit. Let's see. I think that's good. Just let me just reshape this one spot. You know, I just feel like there should be a little detail right there at the end of the S. Like that. See, did that show up better? A little bit. Yeah. Just let that dry. I think it'll be fine. I don't see. Just trying to, one last attempt to make sure that the surface is, you know, conforming to the surface of the crown as possible. Nothing's really sticking up. Okay, that's good. I don't think I should fuck with it anymore. I think this would do. I mean, people when they see this, it's like, oh, cool. Especially when you see Super S. There you go. That's pretty much what they're going to see at night. Cool. Alright. one last check on these guys here. Don't see any major air bubbles on this side. Sorry for the focus. Backside doesn't have to look that great anyways, because mainly it's on this side. The front looks pretty good. This one, this second hand is so small, it probably won't even make a difference if there's something off. And one more on this side, let's see. Should be pretty cool. So we're gonna let this dry, and then I'm gonna come back and just paint the tips of these red, yellow, blue at the tips, just to color coordinate it with urgency. And just add a splash of color to the otherwise very monochromatic watch, just enough. So that's that. This looks like it should go pretty good. I'm going to put this loose movement back. It's an extra 7S26 that I experiment with, which I originally kind of dabbled with the blue Lume, actually. Just to, you got to practice this stuff before you do it on the real thing. And it's on, at least on this side of it. Let's see if I can show it to you. You can see it here, where it is. It's not bad. It's definitely harder because if I were to try to do it with something like this, there's no real frame. You know, this is just something really flat applied, and me trying to paint over that and keep it in line. A little bit tougher actually than some actual applied indices where you can you have, like, you know, it's off the dial and you have a little bit of space, or you know, at the place where you would flow paint into anyways properly. But this is all flat, so it's gonna be hard to make this look even. If you can kind of see it, this triangle here, you can kind of see it's a little bit not as smooth as this can be, but that was my first attempt, and I didn't even thin out the Lume paint at that time. But now that I do, probably work. But again, painting over existing Lume is not the best thing, because you can get contamination from the green Lume. It'll probably make the blue Lume not as blue. It'll probably look kind of like turquoisey, which is probably not what you want. You bought blue Lume, it should be blue. I mean, it looks like it here, but it could be more blue in actuality. When you see it in eyes, it looks more blue in this camera right now. So yeah, you would ideally scrape it out. But if you thin it out, two things. If the paint, Lume paint, you paint it on directly, obviously it's thinner, so it's that much of the old Lume will show through. And Lume-Brite is strong, so you can guarantee pretty much that green Lume-Brite Lume will affect your Lume on top of it, unless you make it thick enough. And that's a drawback, so that's why you should scrape it off. But again, if you make the Lume paint too thin and there's nothing there, and say it's black or something else, it'll show through that a little bit. It really depends on how much you thinned it out. And you may need to do a couple, at least an extra layer or something to help make sure the paint is more opaque enough, so whatever's underneath it doesn't really, again, show through or cross-contaminate the colors. Because even when it's not Lume in the daytime or normal light, if it's too thin, it may show through. So this Lume on top might actually look darker than you'd ideally want it to be. Something to keep in mind. That's why it's tricky working with this stuff. Anyways, I'm rambling along long enough. I hope this was helpful and informative. I will quickly come back once this is ready, or when I have time to finish up the tips, and we can start applying these guys onto the watch and finish up this build. Thanks for watching. Bye.